have you ever accidentally tear gassed your neighborhood? No? You mean I'm the only one who's ever done that? And no, I am not lying. I actually did, by accident, tear gas my neighborhood. Now let me back up a little bit and tell you the actual full story here. Back in 1987, when I bought my very first home, it was a small little home. It was a 3-season cabin that had been remodeled into a home, and out back was this little work shed, which was part of the appeal of that house when I bought it, was to have this little work shed out back. It had a concrete floor and it had some cabinetry in it. It wasn't very big, maybe 8 feet deep by 12 or 14 feet long, so just enough to have some tools and a lawnmower and that kind of stuff, but it had power, so it was really nice. It was a cute little shed. And we were moving in, getting all of our stuff. We had purchased the house and had signed the papers, and it was move-in day, and everybody was really excited, and we're unpacking our stuff. And I was really excited to get back into that shed and to unpack some of my tools and things in the shed. And so we're carrying my tools, and I had my buddy there. His name was Bob, and my buddy Bob was with me, and we were out there carrying in the tools and putting stuff away. And I went and I opened up this one tall, skinny cabinet. And when I opened it up, lo and behold, there was a can, about the size of a soda can, right? But it was OD green, and it said CS Riot on the can. It had a handle like, it was a regular grenade. Now, it just so happens that the person who lived in the house before me was a member of the Minnesota Army National Guard. And hey, so was I. And another coincidence, like a month previous to me buying this house, we had training on all kinds of hand grenades, including CS riot control grenades. So when I opened that cabinet up and I saw that can there, I realized what it was. And my buddy Bob said, "Oh, is that real? That's crazy. That couldn't be." And I said, No, calm down. This one says on it CS riot, and if you pick it up, and I turned it upside down and there was a big hole in the bottom. I said, "No, you see this one here, this is just a training aid." I said, "I just went through training on this like a month ago. That's why it's labeled the way it is. And this hole in the bottom, you see, they've drilled this out. And the reason it's so heavy is because they just filled it with cement or something, and they're just using it as a training aid. This guy must be an instructor." I knew he was in the Army National Guard, so I thought maybe he was an instructor or something, and he just left this one behind. And my buddy Bob says to me, "Well, if you pull the pin, then nothing's going to happen to this one?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." And I grabbed that CS riot control grenade, and I pulled the pin. Guess what happened? The handle went pew, just like it would in the movies. And all of a sudden, it exploded and started spewing out tear gas out of the bottom of that can. It just went. Now, mind you, we're standing in this small little shed. So almost immediately, we were overwhelmed with the tear gas. And I had it in my hand yet, and as it ignites, it also gets very hot. So the tear gas canister was starting to burn my hand. So what my brain was telling me to do was to get outside and to throw this thing out into the middle of my yard, just to get it out from this small little shed that we were in and get it out into the open air. So I went for the door. There was a lip, though, on the door that was about 4 inches high. And as I went for the door, my toe caught that lip and I fell. And as I went to throw that canister, it hit the ground, did one little bounce, and then rolled directly under the deck of my house. Now, the deck of my house was only about 3 feet off the ground. So it rolled in this little area about 3 feet under my deck, stopped right there, and just continued to. Now, the wind that day happened to be blowing north to south through our neighborhood. And we were on the very northern loop in that neighborhood. And so this big plume of tear gas, which first kind of bubbled up, caught the wind, and went through my house, which since we were moving in and it was warm, we had all the windows and doors and everything open. So I tear gassed my house. Now, my wife and some of the other folks that were there helping us move, they weren't at our house. They had actually run to get another load of stuff, so they weren't there. It was just my buddy Bob and me and my dog Sonny. Sonny was in the house. When he got whiff of that tear gas, he made a mad dash for the door and went boom right into the screen door on our patio and was trying to claw his way out through that screen door. Now, luckily that wasn't too far away and I had regained a little bit of my senses by that point. I was able to go over and let him out, so he was able to escape the house. But that cloud of tear gas bubbled up, caught that wind through my house, and just dispersed through our neighborhood. Now, we didn't think anything of it from the neighbor's point of view. I mean, we were so concerned about what was happening at my house and with the dog and the tear gas in my own home. I didn't give it any thought about the neighbors or running down the road to tell anybody what was happening. And as we were trying to air out my own house and setting up fans and things, one of the neighbors came running down the street, and she was frantic, and she was like, "Did you just smell that? Oh!" And she was going crazy, and somebody who had probably never ever experienced tear gas before in their life, and was like frantic, and all I could do was kind of laugh, which probably wasn't the right response, but I was embarrassed and I was scared, and I was still recovering from the tear gas myself. My sinuses were running in my eyes and everything, and I laughed and then said, no, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. It actually was me. Well, that just really upset her, and she immediately ran away from us, went and called the police. And so I didn't realize that she had called the police, and we continued just to do our cleanup. I called my family and said, "Hey, this is what happened. Our house is really nasty with tear gas right now. We're trying to air it out, but if you've got any fans, please bring the fans with, stop by." We had relatives that were nearby. Stop by my mom's house, stop by your mom's house, get as many fans as you can over here, and we're going to air this house out. And so that's what we were working on. Now, about 20 or 30 minutes later, in rolls a police car into our driveway. And I thought, oh no, I am going to be in some big trouble here. And the police officer came up and explained to us that somebody had called the police, said that we were tear gassing, but he didn't use the term tear gas. I can't remember what the term was that he used, but we were releasing something into the neighborhood. And so I explained to him what happened and the fact that I thought this was a training aid. And as a matter of fact, I had just had training on one device exactly like this in my guard unit, and they explained to us that it was a training aid, and how you could tell was because it had this writing on it and it had been drilled out and all the everything. And yet it wasn't, and I didn't realize that it was a real tear gas canister. And now, luckily for me, the police officer who came was also a member of the Minnesota National Guard, and he kind of chuckled, and he said, "Well, I'm going to need to confiscate that canister." And it was under my deck. My deck is only about 3 feet off the ground, so we had to crawl under there, and I had to kind of fish it out with a stick because it was still pretty warm even at that point. And then we put it into a paper bag and put some dirt in there with it so it wouldn't burn the bag, and sent it along with the police officer. Now, I never got a ticket, or I never got arrested or anything like that from that incident. But that is also how I met my new neighbors. So Suffice it to say, we didn't make any real close friends in that neighborhood. Years went by before we actually knew some of their names, so it was, it was not a good way to introduce yourself to the neighborhood. But let that be a lesson to you. If you ever see an OD green can that says CS Riot on it, it's not just a training aid. It's a live tear gas canister, and if you pull that pin, you're gonna get a surprise. All right, that's gonna do it for today. Hey, but don't worry, I got lots of stories and lots of things we want to do yet, which means I will see you tomorrow.